So we are live, folks, and I will introduce our program. Rodger Craddock is our program, the City Manager of Coos Bay, and Rodger began his association with the City of Coos Bay nearly 30 years ago when he was sworn in as a reserve police officer with the police department in Coos Bay back in 1991. In November of 1995, he transitioned from a volunteer to a full-time police officer. While working in the police department, Rodger held various positions, including watch commander, administrative sergeant, administrative captain, and chief of police. In September of 2009, Rodger transitioned from managing the city's police department to managing the day-to-day business of the city after being appointed city manager. Over his career with the city, Rodger has earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice Administration and a master's degree in Public Administration. So please join me in giving a Rotary welcome to City Manager of Coos Bay, Rodger Craddock.
And Rodger, thanks, Tim. Can you allow me to share my screen?
Yes, I was just about to say that, and I have to give you permission to share the screen. So there you go.
Great. So it's definitely my pleasure to be here today. These are, without a doubt, difficult times in our community and around the world. But as far as COVID-19 holding the city back, it's definitely not. In fact, some of my staff believe we're busier than they've ever been to this point. You know, I'm pretty blessed. I talked to a number of my peers around the state, and I feel that I'm blessed with probably having the best city council of anybody else. I have a council that works together. They don't all agree on everything, but when everything's said and done, they move forward and move on to the next challenge. I kind of broke this up a little bit in talking about what's happening around the city as far as investing in our infrastructure, and then talking about housing, as that's a huge issue for this community. And then what's happening as far as building, fixing up current buildings or building new buildings. As far as investing in our streets, we have a little over 140 lane miles of streets in the city, and some of those streets are just almost a century old, and you don't need me to tell you that it needs our attention. This year, the city, through a number of funding sources, have tackled the streets that are up on your screen. In addition to that, these are the streets that were tackled last year. In all, we are actually working towards probably a little over $5 million in street projects. And that actually doesn't include a major project we have on 4th Street. And I apologize if you've been down on 4th Street, it is a little bit of a pain. But you know, like anything in life, if you're gonna make progress, if you're gonna enhance something, there's always a little bit of inconvenience and a little bit of pain while we wait for things to get better. The 4th Street project will include a complete removal of the street and putting down a roadbed. I would say removing the roadbed, but I'm fairly certain with the geotech work we've done, we actually don't have a roadbed. It's just laid down on clay or sand. So that'll be removed. The work that's going in will require us, when we meet the new ADA standards for curbs and crosswalks, that we have to put in new street lamps or street lights at the intersection of Anderson and 4th and Commercial and 4th. So this project is about $2.3 million in total at this point in time, and it'll run from Market to Donnelly. And just a kind of a sea of cones out there today. In addition to the street work we've already done this year and the project on 4th Street, We're also going out to an additional 15 locations to do some pothole patching. And we're doing that differently than we've done in the past. We now have a grinder, and we go out and grind out the section, and then we work with Knife River to put in a hot patch and then to put that in place. So we're not using cold patch during the summer months. So those are more permanent fixes, as permanent as asphalt can be anyway. In addition to street work, we're undertaking a number of different sidewalk projects. The picture here shows 4th Street the sidewalk in front of the Coos Art Museum being torn out. Actually, most of that sidewalk's already been now replaced. What's yet to be replaced is the ramp. We had to redesign the ramp so it now meets the current ADA standards. In the coming weeks, we'll wrap around onto 2nd Street on both sides of that block and replace those sidewalks. Most of those sidewalks were damaged by the street trees that were planted more than 50 years ago. We've tried to learn our lessons from the past. We now have the proper street trees and are preparing the dirt and colanders around the root systems as we put them in an effort to prevent this reoccurrence in 50 years. Our other large project is over in East Side. The city applied for and received a $2 million grant from the state as a Safe Routes for School project. This was in conjunction with the new East Side Elementary. The total project to put sidewalks on both 6th Avenue and D Street came to about $2.9 million. We are partnering with ODOT to do a section outside the city, and we've also partnered with the school district to do a short section on 2nd Avenue. As you can see, this picture was taken on Sunday. You can see that a number of sections of sidewalks are already in, and they're making great progress. Unfortunately, I think it'll be some time before our students actually get to use the sidewalks, as we'll wait for some more COVID-friendly time for school to get in session. In addition to streets and sidewalks, we're also investing in our sewer and stormwater systems. We have in excess of 90 miles of pipe underground, along with 26 pump stations or lift stations, and 2 wastewater treatment plants and 1 sludge lagoon or treatment center. All of it takes maintenance. As good stewards of the public's infrastructure, we're constantly working on upgrading the system. Last year, while we replaced 2 pump stations and put a new under the bay line in from East Side, we're continuing to work. We'll be replacing nearly or just over 2,000 feet of sanitary or storm lines, along with replacing 12 manholes. This year we'll spend $1.5 million in maintaining the system's infrastructure. That'll be in addition to the planning process that we're in now to update the downtown treatment plant. The last time that was updated was in the early 90s. Typically, those need to be updated every 20 or so years. While the plant is basically original from the 1950s, it has good bones. It just needs some updating. Another project we're working on and doing an assessment currently is updating our streetlight infrastructure. It's amazing that we have 1,100 streetlights in the city, and they cost us just over $200,000 a year to keep those lights on at night. The money for that comes out of the gas tax, our share of the gas tax revenue from the state. We're trying to slim that down so that we can take savings and put that onto the roads. We're currently undergoing an audit to see what it would take to switch over to LED technology. We had an assessment done, and that assessment basically came out that we could save about $55,000 a year. The cost, though, to switch over to LED technology is just under $700,000. a number of cities, including Bend, Central Point, Medford, they teamed up with a company called Amoresco, and Amoresco went out and financed the cost to switch over all of their street lamp technology over to LED, and then they used the savings from their energy savings to pay down their debt service. Our current assessment is about 11-year payback. We're now conducting the audit to see if that assessment is close. We're assuming that it is, and should that happen, then we'll move forward similar to other cities and switch over to this new technology. In addition to the other things, we're investing into our parking lots. We currently own 11 parking lots. And it's always nice when you hear someone say that we have a parking problem. That's actually a good thing to have. When you have people having difficulty finding parking, that means things are happening in your city. One of the new parking lots will be constructed where the old, now it's going to escape me, the building that was there, the Lockhart building. That's currently in design. We're using some federal dollars to make that happen, and there's always good things and bad things when you use somebody else's money, and then you have to play by their rules. So we're currently going through the federal environmental process to get that approved. The other one is, of course, the old scrapyard on Front Street, and take this opportunity to thank Steve for being patient with the city as we worked with DEQ through their arduous process. And I want to say, Steve, you can probably confirm this, I believe this was more than a 2-year process to acquire the property.
I think we're going on 4.
It very well could be. We're currently jumping through another DEQ process, and that's coming up with a remediation plan. We should have that sometime this week or next week, and then unfortunately we'll probably have to wait 2 or 3 months to get DEQ to approve it. But once that occurs, then we'll be cleaning up that property. We do plan to put out a request for proposals to take down the building on the north side of the property. But when that's said and done, that'll become a parking lot for Front Street. Front Street is undergoing a number of changes, and we anticipate that additional parking will be needed as that becomes an area that's been envisioned for, I think, from the time that Bill Greil was on the council and was on as the city manager when they came up with the original plans to update Front Street and make it the place it should be. So as Bill will probably tell you that some things take a long time in government. This is one of those things, but it'll be worth the wait.
Well, Roger, I got to tell you, I'll never forget the day that the Saturday that former city attorney Randall Tosh and I went down and met with the Schneidermans and told them that the city council was passing a resolution to condemn that lot. And Jack, Steve's dad said to me, it'll be over my dead body. And so, Steve, what did you tell me at your father's funeral?
So Bill showed up to the funeral. I said, the body's over there. But here we are.
The other thing we're going to be doing is investing in our parks. You know, we're pretty blessed. We have 196 acres of developed or undeveloped parkland within the city. And of course, the jewel is Mingus Park. But Mingus Park needs a little bit of work. We are working on design plans right now with an engineering firm to dredge the pond, which will be no small task. I think the last time it was dredged was 15 years ago. In addition, we're looking at replacing some of the amenities, such as the bathrooms, which I think have been in place for more than 50 years, and then taking care of some drainage issues for the children's playground equipment. We're hoping to have all those plans in place so that we can apply for a state parks grant this next year. We anticipate that that's going to be somewhere in the $2 million range. And then one of our community assets is the Egyptian Theater. We're fortunate to have the Egyptian Theater Preservation Association that operates the theater on behalf of the city, and they have been able to acquire some grants as well as some gifts to replace the roof. They began replacing the roof or tearing off the old roof this last week. They assumed that there was 3 layers of roofing material on there. Turns out there's actually 6 layers, and it's almost 6 inches thick. People are still scratching their heads why that's still actually standing up there and it didn't come down. But that's being removed, and they'll replace that with a 50-year-old membrane roof, and it'll be fully paid for through the ETPA and their efforts. As I mentioned earlier, housing is a big issue for our community and probably most communities across the nation. But I have good news. There's lots of projects occurring. And if I've done my math correctly, we could see more than 500 units come online in the next 2 to 3 years. This first one here, this is a city-owned lot that was behind the Empire Fire Station. I know that our former fire chief envisioned someday us building a new fire station on that lot and tearing down the old one. But the council thought maybe there was an opportunity here to help spur on some multifamily housing. So we went out for a request for proposals, and in essence, the City of Coos Bay is willing to give the land if someone will actually build housing here. We received 2 proposals. They accepted one. This one here will create 9 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartments with a garage. They poured the footings on Friday, and we should start seeing some walls going up here in the coming weeks. In addition, those of you who know Wes Plummer, he's continuing to build his rental portfolio. These are 6 similar apartments to those on Wasson, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a garage. So this will be a nice addition as well. There's been a lot of talk about the 400+ unit manufactured home park that will go up behind the old former Kmart or the Cascade Farms property. They went through their land use. That's been approved. No appeals. They've done some work. They're waiting on a grading permit and going through some building permits. But we should see some work occurring on that either late this year or early next year. In addition, there's the planning process for a new 13-home subdivision. That's actually on the very northwest corner of the city. As you can see, you can even see the airport. These are supposed to be some higher-end homes. I don't have a slide in here, but there's another 15-unit subdivision off of North Morrison that's in the planning process as well. The city partnered with the new owner of the old Buggy Bank and providing him some upfront funding, at least financing, where he could actually develop the upper floor into 11 partnered apartments. He's done that, and he has what in essence is a 20-year contract with OHSU to provide student housing for their students that come into our area. Another project we have is, it's kind of a win-win. We have the old Inglewood School property that was destroyed back in, I think, 2015 by fire. I think in the same week that it was foreclosed on. I know that's not suspicious. And my understanding is it actually caught fire twice because not all of it burnt down. Anyway, that owner fled the area. The county has repossessed it. as you can see, it's in a horrible mess, and unfortunately, it's a hazardous site. It was an old school. It had some PCB issues, as well as other. But we've come upon a good partnership. While the county has foreclosed on the property, they've made an agreement with the City of Coos Bay and Oregon Coast Community Action that if the City of Coos Bay finds the funds and can get the property cleaned up, they will transfer that property over to ORCA with deed restrictions that it has to be developed for low-income housing. We actually have secured some federal funding, and we're in the environmental review process currently. Once we get that, and we anticipate getting that within the next couple of months, then we'll move forward to find a contractor to clean the property up, and hopefully in the coming year, we'll see plans for transforming that property. The city has a facade program through the urban renewal districts, and it was sad to see the condition of Old City Hall. But if you've driven by, the new owners have done a lot of work in cleaning up the exterior, and they are now cleaning up the interior. My understanding is they hope to renovate the entire inside of the building back into professional offices, and then also to encourage someone to reopen a cafe in what was the former fire bay. And I'm sorry to see that Amy's not with us, but you can see Tower Ford, what it looked like before the facade, and here's the new facade minus their sign. And speaking with a couple of their salespeople, and we're understanding that they're hit with COVID-related delays as well, and they're waiting on their new sign to come in. I don't have a rendering of what Shark Bite will look like, but they're currently under some renovations. Part of that was spurred on by someone making their wall a drive-through by accident. But they're planning to fix that up, and they may be fixing up the easterly side as well. And if anybody recognizes the Flora building, there's been a lot of work that's been put into that by Heidi Sauce. And while the siding looks similar, you can see all the new windows that's gone in, and they're doing indoor renovations as well. We can anticipate that it'll turn out just as well as she did where Front Street Provision is now at. Another project that will be coming down soon will be the Old Masonic Lodge, or the Pacific School of Dance, what it is now. They held off on doing the exterior renovations. They took advantage of COVID-19 and the fact that they can't have students in the building, that they're doing all their indoor renovations currently. This is kind of some renderings of what it'll look like. Both the Tioga and the Koski changed hands last year, and both of them are in the process of getting some renovations, both in the interior and the exterior. You'll see what the rendering looks like for the new Tioga exterior, and this is what the night vision will be. They're putting in some accent lighting to highlight that. My understanding is they're returning the sign to its original sign design from the approximately the 40s. While this is not a city project, I'm amazed with the renovations to this old building. This is next to Blossom Gulch School. Originally started out as Bay Clinic, and it's been a number of things over the years. This is what it's currently looking like as of a day ago. And this is what the future building will look like for South Coast Family Dentistry. Another building that's going to see some life, and we're excited for Dr. Carl and his business as they move forward. They've got their land use approvals to move their business into this building. we're excited for you, Dr. Carl, and we're happy to see this building get put into use. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about all the work that's happening with all the schools. With Eastside Elementary, I'm amazed at watching what's happening with the new middle school and how quickly that building is going up, and also excited for the new health and science building. I'd be a little more excited if we could actually occupy them, but that'll come. Coos Bay Village, it's exciting to see that move forward. It's also aggravating to go through the process with the state, and we've been working with the state on upgrading that intersection. It's a fair amount of work to coordinate when you're working with ODOT, ODOT Rail, and the port who operates the rail line. They do have approval to at least put up the first few buildings before they can have the intersection, but once they get out to those buildings, then they have to have the intersection before they can continue on. They are moving forward. I understand we should see some paving around the initial section within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Roger?
Yes.
Which intersection is going to have the traffic control?
It'll be at Hemlock. And this site here, this used to be, if you remember way back when, that used to be Redneck Motors. That it will now be the future home for Coos Bay Liquor Store. It looks like they've got a number of their building components that were delivered this last week, and they should be pouring the slab sometime this week or next. The Holland Place Cultural and Welcoming Center is slated to go before the Planning Commission, I believe, in October. And hopefully we'll see then movement on that once that gets approved early next year. And if you've seen Connects, it's been boarded up. If you don't know, that was purchased by First Interstate Bank. And their plan is to take that down and put up a new branch at that location. I think that's all of my 48 slides.
It's really nice to see.
I'd be happy to entertain any questions. I'm not going to promise to have answers, but I'll definitely take questions.
I've got a quick question. On the, like out in Empire, there's where 7-Eleven and the old Gussie's is, there's that push button cross signal, the flashing yellow. Are those expensive?
They run about $10,000 per set.
Okay, would you put one in so I can get to the liquor store and back safely?
I don't know why, but Leapfrog, the game Leapfrog comes to mind.
Hey, Roger, this is Dick Leslie. The First Interstate Bank has built a new branch. Are they going to vacate the yellow brick one down across from Tioga? Is that their plan?
No, the First Interstate that we're talking about is what used to be known as Bank of America, and they're currently in Pony Village Mall.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hey, Roger, I got to say, that was a great report. And I just want to give kudos to you and the mayor and council. I think the city is just really on a roll in some really challenging times. And it's not remarkable because you're doing such a great job, but it's worth mentioning that you are the longest tenured city manager in Coos Bay since clear back before Dick Kahanick in the 70s. So congrats to you for that.
Well, thank you, Bill. I was going to mention that you were the city manager when I was hired. And I appreciate you hiring me.
I don't think I had anything to do with it, but it was a good decision by somebody.
Well done. Stephanie, did you have something or were you talking?
Oh, of course, I was going to say Dick Leshley was dating himself because that was way back in the day. And as a person who sits on the council, I concur with Bill. Where this city is very fortunate to have Rodger at the helm. He does an amazing job. Just his wealth of knowledge about this city, having started with the police and then moving to where he is now, is an incredible asset to our community.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll still go back to say that I'm a blessed person by not only having a great council, but you know, I couldn't do this myself. I have a staff, many of which have been here for more than 10 to 20 years, and all of them are experts in their own right.
Roger, you had mentioned briefly that we were going to maybe see some blacktop coming in at the village. When do we expect to see any of those places operational? Is that still a ways off, or?
Well, I believe per their lease agreements, they have turned over at least 3 of the buildings over to their the lessees, and they're doing their completions of the internal shell. But I anticipate, and we were told, maybe by November we would actually see at least 1 or 2 of them up and running. I believe the first 3 buildings are Starbucks, Face Rock Creamery, and then Charter Communications on the outside. The one building that's still under construction for the shell will be the restaurant.
When you say shell, that does bring to mind another question that kept popping into my mind when you see things like you know, the liquor store moving over here, or you know, maybe a Starbucks here or there, or what have you. Do you look over to the old properties then? Does that come into play for something else the city can do, or are some of those others already spoken for? Or is Coos Bay Liquor going to maintain 2 properties? What do you have when something like that, when you have an existing property moving into another property?
So it's my understanding that the liquor store was only renting at their current location. They will be leaving. That property recently just sold. In fact, that entire block just sold. And it's my understanding that a realtor is moving into the old liquor store location after they renovate that property. We don't know what the plans are yet for the rest of that block.
Very good. Well, you have certainly been probably busier than most during this time. How do you guys keep track of, I mean, do you break these into teams? How do you keep track of all these moving pieces?
We actually do, we have meetings once a month where all 4 of the divisions come together, the public works operations, the planning, engineering, and then of course, finance. And we actually go through all of the projects that are sitting on our plates. And I guess I forgot building codes. That's where we kind of can keep track of what projects are coming in from outside the city. So.
Well, fantastic. It was a very, very solid report. I really appreciate you taking the time out of, you know, what little time you have after all that we saw, that you took time to come tell us about it. It was well worth it for us to be able to hear about all the stuff going on in Coos Bay. And do we have any other questions? We're getting late in the hour, folks, but does anyone else have a question for Rodger before we wrap things up? Hearing none. Rodger, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
Nope. I thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure for me to talk about what's happening in the city.
Thank you so much, and we'll keep in contact with you, and maybe have you back for a checkup in 6 months or so, and see how everything's going on with all of these great projects and plans that are in the works.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. Anyone else? We have a couple minutes left. Did anyone else have any announcements before that we didn't get to at the start? Anybody that joined us in progress that would like to make any mention of anything going on or coming up? Otherwise, I think Tom was unable to make things work, but we did want to throw one more plug again that tomorrow they need all the workers they can get at Second and what is it, Steve?
Golden.
Second and Golden. Thank you. And that is around 11 a.m. or noon. But the more hands, the better. The faster it will go, loading up a lot of equipment, medical equipment that will be clearing out our warehouse once and for all. So of medical equipment. So we are needing anybody, anyone that you know that wasn't able to make the meeting today, please pass that along to them. And of course, we ask you to do proper protocol and everything like that. So other than that, I am going to call this meeting adjourned. And we will see you next Tuesday on the 15th. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week. Stay safe and be well. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.